So I'm really excited to dive into this conversation with you, Erin. There's a couple of different things I want to cover because I think you have a unique insight into the industry as a whole. But where I want to begin is I want to have some context for this conversation. So I want to start. Can you just describe your practice as it is today? The team, the space, just like what you guys are all about.
Yeah, absolutely. So I practice in Aurora, Colorado, which is basically Denver if you don't live in Colorado. And I've got one therapist working under me right now practicing massage. All we do is pain relief, posture correction, sports massage, very clinical type work. All last year, I had two massage therapists working under me. I've got two treatment rooms in my space, and I'm currently expanding and looking to hire again. So that's what we're doing.
Oh, that's super exciting. So, we're going to get into this conversation as you are also a coach for massage therapist. And I love that you get to provide insight both into like, hey, what are you doing kind of at this other level where you have employees and you have people underneath you, but also for those people who are listening who are in that solo practice journey, I know you've got some great insight and advice for them. One of the things that I do want to ask is, do you consider yourself a massage therapist or an entrepreneur first, and why?
I actually love that question because I've always felt and I've always told people like I am a business owner, number one, and then a massage therapist, second. And I think that has guided a lot of my decisions in building my practice and even as I've kind of become more of a mentor and a coach for other therapists. But I think that's the mentality that's really gotten me to where I am today is as a business owner, entrepreneur first, and then massage therapist. So
So I love that. And I want to rewind the clock back. I'm curious if we were to look back at, let's think maybe this teenager, 13 to 15-year-old Aaron, who were you and what were you like at that time?
well, I was kind of a mess, if I'm honest, but who wasn't really at that age? So I was terrible in school. And I think that was part of the entrepreneur side of me trying to like come through, but not a rule follower. Really just an artist, to be honest, super creative. But I was really, really bad in school. I didn't function well with a whole lot of limitation. I felt like this freedom was really, really important to me before I even knew why or like what that was. But I knew what I wanted to do really early on, and so that was super helpful. And I kind of got along with everybody, which I feel like is that kind of stuck with me for sure. But I feel like I can connect with almost anyone.
And so, what was it that led you into massage and wellness to begin with? I believe this was first in 2001.
2011, yeah. I mean, if we like really
2011.
wind it back, I've been getting massage since I was 8 years old. So maybe that's what you're referring to. Not quite. That doesn't map correctly. Um,
Yeah, the math doesn't make sense there. So in 2001, what was that thing? So like, what got you in? Because one of the things I had seen is, I do my research, which is a really fancy podcaster way of saying I creep on people. And so one of the things I was looking at, I had seen, I could see in your Facebook you being interested in the arts, being interested in music. Drawing also as well and a lot of artistic things. What took you from this path to saying, hey, let me check out massage, let me check out wellness? What was that for you?
yeah, so I think being creative is just sort of ingrained in who I am and how my brain works. But my mom, she has been getting me massage since I was a little kid. So it's always been part of my life, which I'm really, really grateful for. So when I was in junior year of high school, we had like these announcements that were up on the TV and they were all with like the theater tech team and they were in school announcements. It glitched out one day and it flipped over to regular cable TV, which happened to be an advertisement, like a commercial for a massage school. And it turned out to be not a great massage school, but I just remember seeing it and feeling this visceral, full body reaction. I was like, this is what I need to be doing. And it felt like a calling, and everything else after that just sort of fell into place.
Now, as a massage therapist, I will kind of skip a little bit of time, but you went into business for yourself. What did that first year of business look like for you?
It was messy, man. It was messy. But luckily, I was really young. I was 19. So I was able to just make a whole bunch of mistakes real fast, real hard, and just like play and kind of see what worked. And I am just as tenacious then as I am now. And so I tried everything, especially as far as marketing. I mean, I was talking to neighbors, I was canvassing the neighborhood, I was doing direct mail flyers, I was doing chair massage, like you name it. And one big thing that I did do was chair massage in Whole Foods. And then many years later, I ended up purchasing that company with 25 employees working under me in 2 locations. So yeah, it was a lot.
Yeah, you've definitely seen, the industry in different ways. I think your business has taken different shapes and forms. I'm really curious, were there any mistakes that you made, especially let's say in that first year, something that maybe even set you up for a later success because you made that mistake?
That's a great question. I think one big mistake I made, which was necessary, right? Like I think those are very valuable, but I don't want anybody else to make this mistake, is that I didn't really track what was working, right? I probably could have saved myself a metric shit ton of time and money and resources if I had just paid attention to what was actually working and defined what working meant to me, right? Because I was just kind of throwing spaghetti at the wall, and like turns out a lot of stuff works, but it took me so long to get there, and it took so much of my bandwidth and my resources to kind of suss that out. And at the end of the day, I didn't even have a clear plan of where I wanted to go. So I didn't have those metrics and I wasn't tracking. So it was just kind of like, it was absolute chaos. So tracking, and then I would say even creating a values-based goal, right? Like what is really, really important? How can my business support me to get there? And at 19, that wasn't going to happen. But that's what I would do differently.
Yeah, I think it's definitely an outlier of, I have conversations with people every day about how can we get more therapists into businesses, how we can get more people into massage school and the industry as a whole, and more people are that second career sometime later in life compared to something that's like right out of high school, right out of, trade school or massage program to go into it. So I find that really, really interesting. You mentioned having those value-based goals. When you think back to, being 19, starting and having your own business, what were you looking for? I think there's no like one correct thing in terms of running a business or like how to have your life. But you mentioned these value-based goals. So when we think back to then, like, was it money? Was it a certain lifestyle? What was the thing that said, okay, this is what I'm working towards?
Yeah, so I didn't really know it in words at the time. But now, especially as I've been doing some really intentional entrepreneurship, so to speak, it was freedom all along. It was freedom and fun. And that has never changed. That's an integral part of who I am. So whether I knew it or not, that's what was driving my choices, because I knew I didn't want to be beholden to somebody else's schedule, to somebody else's glass ceiling, to somebody else's expectations. And that was my very messy, haphazard way of creating that and facilitating a life and an experience where I didn't have to compromise any of it. And that's why I do what I do. Is to help people do the same for themselves.
Love that, and I love that it's something that you continue to do and kind of pass the torch down to other therapists. One of the things I wanted to go back to, you mentioned about you started your business and then at some point buying into the place you were working, multiple locations, tons of employees. What is the story behind that? How did that come about? And just what was that experience like?
Oh man, how much time do we have, Daryl? Give you the cliff notes. So it must have been 2000. It was like right after graduation. So like probably late 2011. I started doing chair massage for 2 different companies that basically do the same thing. Here in Colorado, they've got contracts. They had contracts with Whole Foods. So we were doing chair massage for $1 a minute in these grocery stores, and it was incredible. They gave us, freedom to promote our own practice, and it was the number one way that I personally grew my business. So I was working several shifts. It was 2 people per day, about 4-hour shifts, and we were open every single day, buck a minute. Super clean business model, great relationship and contract with Whole Foods. And then much later on, I did tell the woman, actually, the owner, I was like, my like audacious 20-year-old self, I was like, I'm gonna own this place one day, which in retrospect was a bit much. But it came true. It happened. So in 2018, this other woman who ran the other one said that she was retiring, and she's like, nobody else really wants to step up and purchase this. And I talked to all of my people, all my trusted people, my mentors, my parents, and it was the thing to do. There was like no other. It felt like the most organic option. So I ran that. It was South Glen and Tamarack Whole Foods, two different locations, 25 employees, and it was great for a while. Lots of learning curves for sure, because working for yourself is not the same as managing 25 people across two locations. So that learning curve was steep. And then COVID happened and kind of put the kibosh on all my fun, all of our fun. So that was the beginning and the end of that. That's how that came about.
Really interesting. It's unfortunate to see how COVID came in. I think a common story of, talking to people, what did their pre-COVID version versus kind of their post-COVID business look like? People went through those changes. So I'm curious, you've had the experience. So, you have the space now with multiple treatment rooms. You've had before with tons of employees. One of the things I want to ask for kind of my audience is, so you've had this experience of having to manage between a few people and lots of people. A big theme on this show is this idea of scale and just how to run a group practice. What are those things, those systems, those tools, the people, the stuff that you need when you've got other people underneath you that you just don't need when you're by yourself? What do you find to be most important, most useful to you?
Absolutely. And I think it's of course it's different for every practice and every stage of everybody's practice. And it goes way beyond just like your online booking software and your website and, your laundry system, which I harp on people about all the time. That's huge for sort of the nuts and bolts basics. But honestly, it's my personal systems that are the absolute game changer in my practice, which sounds a little weird, but it's because I'm able to free up so much time, not only in my business. I'm not babysitting my practice all the time, but I'm not babysitting my chores and my errands every single day in my personal life. So, my receptionist is huge, but also people like my personal assistant. She is incredible, and she takes off so much from my plate, and it opens up a lot of space for me to be creative and effectively problem solve in both my businesses. And that's huge. So I don't want anybody listening to this overlooking the idea that you should be delegating stuff out personally as well, not just in your business. So hope that answers your question.
I want to, get a little deeper into your personal assistant. I know for myself, some of the things that I have is, so for people who've been listening for a long time, they know I've been traveling outside the U.S. for, I think I'm on year 8 or something like that. One of the reasons, with the exception of when I lived in Switzerland, is most of the world is a lot more affordable when you're earning in dollars, and that allows me to, I think at the peak of like every service I had, I don't have them all now. A house cleaner daily, someone who came and picked up and dropped off the laundry every week, and then a meal service delivered fresh. We did it like 3 times a week or something like that. And those things, it's like I can also, outsource some of my personal life that gives me so much more time and energy for my business. But then within my business, I kind of have this catch-all virtual assistant who I kind of put her around different tasks as I need to. She edits my podcast. Shout out to Helen. Thank you for editing this audio. She manages some of the emails for me, some communications. She does research on people for me, all these different things. What does that look like for you? What is your assistant doing for you? And I want to get deep into, what do they do for you? How do you communicate, and how do you find them?
Yeah, really good questions. I'm going to answer those in reverse, right? So I found her, she's actually a really, really good friend of mine, so it also feels great to pay her. So we've had been connected for a really long time, and she was looking for like some side gig work, like something super easy peasy. And I was looking for someone to delegate some stuff out to. And the way we communicate has been a kind of a roller coaster, and that's something I think is really important to address in general with these types of working relationships. Because it can be really tricky, and God forbid if there's any sort of miscommunication or, an expectation that wasn't made to be clear, and this really goes for any system that involves another human, someone's going to be upset. Like someone's not going to be happy. You're not going to feel happy paying them, and it's just going to be super messy. So now she's been working for me for over 10 years, I think. So we actually have like this laminated checklist, and we just use like an expo marker. It is so basic, and this is just for my personal assistant, but we can add things to it. She checks stuff off. She writes how much I owe her right on there. Done. Super clean. She knows exactly how I like everything to be done. And she comes by once a week. So it's pretty great. There was another question you had in there.
So I think it's, how did you find her? What are the ways you communicate? Oh, and so you've got this checklist. So what are the things that she does? What falls under that scope for personal assistant for you?
So much. Basically, and this is my motto, both for myself, but also for anybody, really anyone, especially entrepreneurs. If you don't like it and it's not making you money, you should not be doing it, in my opinion. If it's not fun or it's not earning you income, what are you doing? So, there's so much in my house that fits under that umbrella. A lot of cleaning the bathrooms, getting the groceries used to be on there, meal prepping used to be on there, cleaning my floors, cleaning the countertops, emptying the dishwasher, picking up my mail, because I tend to forget that. It just goes on and on. It's like everything in my house. She'll remind me if there's like home maintenance stuff that needs to be done. She just like takes that part of my brain and just like makes it happen with her magic. So she does a lot.
I love how you've kind of applied this. Well, I'm gonna call it systems thinking to your life. Not saying how can I just do this in my business, but what are the other areas in my life? I want to use this as a segue to get into the solo practitioner. This is a kind of person. I spent years working with solo practitioners, and then for me, I found that I love working with people with teams, and I've kind of transitioned out. If you're still a solo practitioner, you find this episode, you can go back, like the first maybe 100 episodes of my podcast are dedicated towards you guys, and then I've kind of moved on. What's best fit for me? So I want to talk about the systems. That's clear how you've applied them for you, but I want to look at a solo practice. Where I want to start is, well, for you, what are systems? Like, what does that mean? And what does that look like in a massage business?
Totally. So, and this is why I love to transfer it over into, literally everything else. It's just a repeatable process where that you will get a certain result after doing XYZ, right? XYZ equals ABC. Every single time. It's this beautiful, repeatable, step-by-step process that allows you to get a consistent result. And that's why we like it, because it can free up time, it can free up mental bandwidth, it can free up a lot of your resources. And as entrepreneurs, whether we're working and we're, managing a team, or we're working for ourselves, we need a lot of bandwidth, not just to get, the nuts and bolts finished, to get all of our crap done during the day. It's always so much, no matter how many people are in your team, but also to be creative. If you don't have any space to be creative in your business, that's going to be a problem, and you're going to hit a wall and or burn out. So systems are a must.
What do you recommend someone start when, in terms of, I need to have systems in my business? One of the ways I look at it is your systems make sure that everyone is doing the right thing, all the time, 100% of the way. Like everything is happening the way it's supposed to. If someone's like, I don't have any systems, or I don't know if I have systems, I need systems, what do you think is like a step one for them?
Love that. I would say, and this is something I have all my clients do, is to get a piece of paper and literally split it in half. Stuff I hate to do, maybe 3 columns. Let's do 3 columns. Stuff I hate to do, like I really don't like it, stuff that doesn't make me money, and stuff I'm bad at, right? Anything in those categories, you can delegate out, or you can automate it, or you can just not do it. That's an option too. That's what I would recommend doing, because most of us are not clear about where to start with this, and then we see other practitioners or teams and we're like, oh man, like they got it going on, they got all these systems and processes, and that just seems like it would be so complicated, it would be so stressful, it's way too much to set up. And it's like, hang on, you don't even know where you need to start. What do you hate to do? What isn't making you money? And what are you bad at? Let's start there.
In your practice, so you've got your personal assistant, but when it comes to the business side, what were some of the first things that you started outsourcing or delegating or really focused on in your own systems process?
I'm laughing because the first thing I delegated out was my phone service. Believe it or not, it wasn't laundry. I know I get on everybody's case about laundry, but it was actually my calling service, my receptionist, because I started to realize on my days off, I would be in the middle of something and I would get a call from a stranger, someone looking for massage, and I would answer in not a very professional way because I felt distracted and I wasn't in a space to take that call, but I felt like I had to. So I took it anyway. And I'm like, okay, all right, Erin, this is going to lose you clients. This is going to damage your reputation. You need to let this go. So that was one of the first things I delegated out.
And what are the other things that you think people should delegate? If we're not really worried about the order, you've mentioned your front desk or phone service really specifically. You've mentioned laundry. We've got those 3 lists that are going to be a little bit different for everyone. But what are those things that you commonly see outsourced, delegated, that you find yourself recommending a lot to your clients?
Absolutely. So the things that fall into those categories, whether it's personal or professional, are they're pretty much the same for everyone, right? And it's different if you have, like you said, like if you've got kids or you've got a family to take care of, or, different priorities and resources look different for everybody. But laundry, please, Holy Mother of God, stop doing your own laundry. Please, I don't care how many people you work for, how many people work for you, please just do that. I love having my calling service because I don't answer the phone for business anymore at all. That's where I would start. Honestly, those are huge. And I know that's so base level, but most of us are wasting so much time doing that. And we may or may not be doing it well.
You mentioned your clients. I want to just give some space. Can you tell us about your coaching? What is it that you do and who do you help exactly?
Absolutely, yeah. So I'd like to help pretty established massage therapists hit that coveted 10K goal, but not 10K a month, but not just for the sake of it. I really like to help my clients get super, super clear on their own values, their own vision for what they want in their business and in their life. I'm a strong believer that, how we do one thing is how we do everything. So developing an approach that's pretty well integrated, right, helps you sort of make more time for things in your life that you love without compromising that income. So that's what I do.
And one of the things I had seen on your website is, this idea of it's not just about making money. On your website, you said, most strategies people are finding to create sustainable long-term massage practices aren't working. What are people missing?
Yeah. I think this is such an important question, and it's not really getting a whole lot of airtime. And everybody has their own idea of what the answer is, right? But what I see the most that's missing for massage therapists who are ready to get to that next level and create something that's really sustainable is systems that work for them and their personality, right? So often we're trying to squeeze ourselves into all these different boxes as entrepreneurs, and that's what makes it really unsustainable, and often it makes it pretty miserable. Like, what's the point of having a business that we have to manage and run all the time if we're just miserable and we're kind of run into the ground and it's not working for us? So really having a deep understanding of, again, our values, but also ourselves, so we know what's going to work for us.
I really love that. And I got to say, I really resonate with that. I've been spending some time lately kind of just refocusing and really working and articulate of the different kind of people I work with and what kind of work. And I remember I had mentioned to someone, hey, these big numbers, 30K, 40K, 50K months. I've got people who they're doing 500,000. They're on the journey to 1 million. And on one side, it's cool that those numbers are normal. But I was telling to someone else and they're like, oh, so you just help people make more money. And I was like, Well, no, not really. Like they all do, but that's not really it. And in fact, actually, the person who gets on a phone call with me and let's say they're at 10K a month, they're like, I want to make more money, and I'm like, you should get a job or like change it. Like change what you're like. If you just want to make more money, you should just go change something entirely. But if we're trying to build something really intentionally, really in alignment, here's what that path looks like, and like you are gonna make more money when you go throughout that process. So you're working with these people who are established. I love that. It's a kind of person that I find myself working with. I mentioned to someone, everyone that I work with has typically graduated out of someone else's coaching program. That's kind of like the minimum before people start talking to me, and I absolutely love that. What are those mistakes that you see at people who are at this level, who are more established? Because for most people, if you tell them your books are full and they're earning anywhere close to the ballpark of 10K per month, that's like, congratulations, you've won. Here's your trophy. Here's your medal. What are those things that you see people are doing wrong or mistakes they're making as they're in that stage or trying to get there?
Yeah, absolutely. And there's so many. And I know most of them, not just from working with massage therapists in this capacity, but from like Exhibit A, right? Like, that is number one. This is how I learned all this stuff, is by making all of the mistakes fast and hard. First and foremost, really, not just kind of looking outside of ourselves for what to do next, right? And that's something I strive to do it's so deeply. It's so important to me to help people find their own way, not just give them a prescription sort of, here you go, Daryl, follow step A, B, and C, and this is what you're going to get. It's got to work for you, who you are, your values, your priorities, your resources, all the things. So not putting values first, or even understanding what is most important for them, because it's similar to what you just said, Daryl, like if you just want to earn money and provide for your family, that's great. There's a lot of ways you can do that are probably a lot easier, than like running your own practice. So we know that we want to build something that's meaningful. We want to build a legacy. We want to build something that supports people well beyond just our family. This is world-changing shit. So we need to be able to put what's most important, what's really driving that, first. That's the biggest mistake I see. And it sounds big, but really we are following our values no matter what. It's just a matter of defining them and getting really clear and making sure that what we're doing actually is aligned. Because most of the time, it's not.
I want to ask, when was that aha moment for you of finding your values? And I'll ask this in this context of, as I've worked with businesses of different sizes, and this is either my clients directly, or this is like I've changed my network of how people view business and like the size of business. It's not to say that more money is better or worse, but a $1,000 business, $100,000, and $1,000,000 are very different businesses, regardless of what they do. I think really, really early on for a lot of people, especially if we're looking at massage and practitioners, it's like, I'm working on a franchise, hours suck and pay sucks, and the kind of version 1.0 of entrepreneurship is like, go make money. Mm-hmm. And then so we kind of chase whatever that thing is that makes money. And then some people, they never get past that. And not really in a bad way. They're just like, I need X thousand per month. I have it done. I don't need to think about this anymore. When did you have this realization, this aha of, hey, these values things are important? Or was it something that was always in you?
I think it was always there, like this knowledge of like these values, because we are following them all the time. Like everything we do is sort of driven by this. It's just a matter of how much spotlight they get, so the more aware of them we are, which is really for me that's been the journey, that's been the process, then we can start to make decisions that are more aligned with that, right? If we're constantly taking advice from, I don't know, Facebook groups all over the place, if we're taking it from books and magazines and all over, and it's everybody else's advice, it's really hard to just like settle in and understand what's most important to us and then make decisions based off of that. So that has been a journey, and it's never really over. Every year I reassess. It's probably the wrong term. I take a look at my values. They very rarely change. But how I honor them and how I'm building my business and my legacy based off of them does change. So that's been an interesting piece, and I don't think it's ever really over.
I'm curious, what have those iterations look like? Whether that's been like the kind of business you run or the values have changed, but can you just walk us through some of those transformations and ahas and iterations you've had as you stop and check with yourself?
Yeah. I think that's a great question. I mean, first, when I first started, I had always had my own private practice, but I was working just like we all do in the beginning. We have our own, we've got our own gig, but we also have a job. And the company I worked for went bankrupt, and I had to find my own. I was basically forced into just going full time on my own. So that forced me to realize what was most important, right? I had to build my own schedule. I had to decide my own rates. I had to determine who I wanted to work with, and all of this was mostly just an experiment, a very messy experiment in the beginning. And then much later on, working, doing the chair massage stuff and owning that company, that allowed me to sort of test drive this idea of leadership, which has taken on different definitions in my own life and in my business life, and kind of seeing what worked there and what didn't work there, right? And then now a lot of it is, honoring freedom, fun, connection, authenticity. Those are really the big ones that drive how, like, the formats in which I help other therapists, right? And even how I lead in my own private practice. So it's been a transformation, and I can see, looking back, how all of these different values and priorities made, like, they had an influence. I just wasn't really aware of it then. So it's almost like this evolution of these values and how they were being brought to life. I hope that makes sense.
And as you look at your own journey, then you think about the clients that you're working with, are there any spots that you think people, or you notice people tend to get stuck a lot, or something they're just not really getting? It takes a while for them to click as they're going through their own journey?
Absolutely. I think the number one thing is, and this is like a big umbrella topic. There's so much under here, and I'm sure you can relate with the folks you work with too. But feeling like we have to do crap we hate, okay? Like social media, number one. I hear this from therapists all the time. Well, I have to be on social media, and it's the only way to market, like, you don't exist if you're not on social media. That's one example of many. But generally saying, like, anything that does not feel good, and, having it be doing something that's difficult is not the same as doing something that really grates on who you are as a person. That's something I want to scream from the mountaintops and make sure every entrepreneur in every field anywhere understands. Like, you don't have to compromise. You don't have to settle. You can do this your way. And at the end of the day, when you do and you understand what that means, you earn more, you make more impact in your community, and it's farther reaching. You get to create something that's way more sustainable and fun.
You've seen so many different businesses. You've gone through changes yourself. I'm curious, how do you view, business and entrepreneurship differently now compared to, say, 5 or 10 years ago?
That's a great question. I used to think there was something kind of formulaic, right? Where it was like, okay, I'm going to pick up this business book and I'm going to read all of it. I'm going to binge it in a weekend, and then all this week I'm just going to implement all the stuff, and then I'll be fully booked and I'll have all the free time in the world I want, and it'll be good. I'll be set for life, And what I really wish I had realized then, but I understand that it's so important as far as the evolution and the process, is that it's a creative process. Like, really understanding that it's kind of like a work of art, your business is. And there's no real, tried and true formula. There's no prescriptive solution, but finding your own creative way through it and really learning what alignment feels like in that context is huge. That's something that will serve you forever.
Now, you sit here today, what I would call a successful business owner. In fact, two businesses. There's no one version of success, but I think everyone who's on my show is successful in some way. When you think about yourself and your own journey, what do you think has made you succeed where others may have failed?
It's a spicy question. This might be kind of a hot take, and I don't know if a lot of people are going to like it, but I'm just going to go for it. Honestly, tenacity and grit. Just not fucking quitting. Like, it is inherently extremely difficult. All of it. Even finding your own way back to like what alignment is and all this beautiful discussion of, values and what's most important and honoring yourself. That's great. But if you don't have the grit and the tenacity to just keep going and to really not give up, it's going to be a very, very hard, emotionally exhausting journey.
We had talked about on this, your business has taken different forms and shapes and sizes. I'm really curious for you, here on the Scaling Wellness podcast, one of the things that I try to do is show people what is possible, what kind of different versions of business are possible, and also expose them to the different mindsets that people might have. I'm really curious, when you hear the word scale, what does that mean to you?
Yeah, so I think that's such an interesting question because there is definitely a concept that comes to mind for people when we say scale. And that's something that I challenged for myself over the past several years because I'm like, well, hang on. Because for me, scaling didn't, I did hire both in my clinic and I owned that chair massage company. And there was bits and pieces that felt really good. And then there were other bits and pieces where I was like, oh, hell no, I'm never doing that again. And I had to do that to find out. So I had to redefine what scaling meant, right? So to me, it doesn't mean just growing a team or just hiring. It means growing in a way that makes sense for what you love to do, your strengths, and again, to be a broken record, your values, right? To me, it means helping your clients in really new, fun ways, and getting paid accordingly, right? And the cool part is something I've noticed through this whole process, both with mentoring other people and doing it myself, is that the impact we make increases like crazy when we start to honor this and we start to get really creative.
I love that. So I want to say thanks for sitting down to have this conversation with me. I've got a few more quick questions. They don't necessarily need to have quick answers. The first one, though, I am very curious. What is your current obsession, that thing that you cannot stop thinking about or you want to tell others about?
I think it's having fun in business. So many of us think we have to do it a really specific way. And if it's not fun, it's not sustainable.
And what do you do when you find yourself frustrated or overwhelmed? What is that release valve for you?
Getting out of my head and into my body, putting down whatever it is that's keeping me frustrated, keeping me overwhelmed, literally physically putting it down and getting into my body, whatever that might mean. That's it.
As you think about your journey, your life and your business, is there a favorite resource of yours? It could be a book, a podcast, a program, a person, whatever, something or someone that you found to be really helpful to you.
Totally. I've never been without a mentor since I was 15, whether that's personally, like spiritually or business-wise. So all of my mentors, if that's a good answer, they've always been consistently my top resource.
What, if any, advice do you see in the industry that you just totally disagree with?
Another hot take. If I would say being fully booked is like the be-all, end-all goal. That's advice I see all the time that I don't fully agree with.
And what's one specific thing someone can do, maybe that's as they're listening today or just in the near future, that's going to have a positive and measurable impact on their business?
That's super hard to pick, but I would say start tracking. Start really paying attention to what's working, and define what that means. Just define those milestones and those metrics so you can say, aha, this is working, right? And then you can ditch everything else and really start doubling down on what's effective for you and your business.
And is there anything else that I haven't asked you about or covered, an opportunity to kind of just speak to everyone, things you want to get off your chest and speak to the industry?
To the industry? Well, there's a lot. I like how you saved this one for the end. No, on the whole, like, I think massage therapists are totally underplaying their power in their community. And I love seeing when therapists get very creative about their business, and they start to really own their own worth, right? And that doesn't mean just charging good rates. I'm talking like energetically embodying their version of success. Everybody else benefits from that. So when I see that, it's like a lighthouse. It's like a beacon. I'm like, that person's got it going on. So I want to see more of that. And I know everybody who practices has that in them.
Well, thank you so much for sitting down and talking to me today. Where's the best place to go if someone wants to learn more about you or connect with you?
Awesome. Yeah, so I've got my Facebook group, which is the Balanced Bodywork Business Group, and that's an open, awesome group. You can also DM me. You can just message me on Facebook. My name's Erin Stebbins. I'm sure that'll be in the show notes. I would love to chat. I would love to just connect and see what you're up to. I'm also offering business audits right now, and those are like 30-minute, just like super power-filled sessions for you to get a clear idea of where you want to go for the rest of the year. So I'd be delighted to offer that to y'all.
Thank you again so much. I'll make sure I have those links in the show notes. And thanks for sitting with me here today. Thanks for everyone watching, listening, however it is you're consuming this. That's all for this episode. And I'll catch you guys on the next one.